Yeah, the motive is still, as Freeman Martin said, Kalev, is still unclear, though there was a report that his in-laws, they're not sure if they were former in-laws or his current in-laws, are members of that church. None of them were there yesterday morning. What we do know is that he was discharged from the Air Force, as you also mentioned, for those sort of crimes against, there were allegations of abuse against a wife and a child. Reports, too, that he had a misdemeanor in the state of Colorado for animal cruelty after living in Colorado Springs, an Air Force town there in 2014. Though the actual motive and what brought him to this place is unclear, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, in his office said that he was denied a permit to own a gun in Texas, and that certainly is going to be a focus of the investigation as well, Kalev.
And, Michael, still some uncertainty about how he died after fleeing from the scene, isn't there? That we're hearing different versions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he left one county and went to another. He left Wilson County and was driving towards Guadalupe County, really chased out of town by some neighbors who saw this, chased him out of town. He apparently did call his father from the car and said he wasn't going to make it after being wounded by one of those men who saw him and tried to get him while he was outside the church. He fled to Guadalupe County driving, and then was he crashed his car, and the presumption is that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. As Freeman Martin there said, on behalf of the state of Texas, that's what they think, but they're not sure yet, and they're going to keep looking into it.
All right, Michael Shore at our studios in L.A. Stay with us. Let's bring in David Schuster, anchor of Stateside on I-24 News at our studios in New York. David, great to have you with us. Let's talk about the political reactions, because whether politicians like to say it or not, this does become political really just in the hours after massacre. We heard President Donald Trump saying this is a mental health issue, this is not a gun issue. What else have you heard from Washington on the reactions?
Well, a couple of things. A lot of people are going to react and are already reacting to that key piece of reporting that Michael Shore provided from the governor of Texas, the idea that this guy had been denied a gun permit because of both either the misdemeanor or because of he was essentially imprisoned while he was in the Air Force. Under federal law and a lot of state laws, that would automatically disqualify somebody from owning a gun, and that should have shown up in a background check. So a lot of the questions now are, well, how come that didn't stop him from getting this particular firearm back in 2016? And you're already starting to hear some of the gun rights people say, look, the issue is not that we need new laws. The issue is that we need to better enforce the ones that already exist. And then you're hearing some people on the left who say, well, this doesn't particularly matter because the laws still have some loopholes with gun shows and other places where even somebody who would normally not pass a background check could still conceivably buy one. So again, it just depends on your political perspective on the rights to buy firearms.
Do you have any sense, David, that this massacre will be any different than those before? That one just about a month and a week ago in Las Vegas, in terms of changing policy, whether it's about background checks or more than that?
It doesn't really sound like it. I mean, after the Las Vegas massacre, the National Rifle Association came out and said that they would support a move to try to ban or at least stop the production of bump stocks, which enables somebody to increase how rapidly you can fire your weapon. But Congress hasn't even been able to move on that, even though you have the National Rifle Association agreeing with it. It's hard to see how this particular incident, given that there were existing laws that should have perhaps stopped this guy from owning a weapon, that will gum up the political opportunity that some people on the left might see in terms of, well, here we again, we have another mass shooting in the United States, and these are happening more frequently. But there's just not the political will, with everything else going on in Washington, there's not the political will to try to jump in and try to solve this.
Well, speaking of that, David, President Trump wasting little time commenting on the shooting in Texas, already declaring this is a mental health issue. But it does seem as if gun laws are going to play some kind of role in the debate over this incident.
Yeah, I think there will be a debate. I mean, the hypocrisy is remarkable, whether it's, Democrats or Republicans. I mean, there was the president who immediately after the terror attack in New York, when somebody who claimed to be motivated by Islamic State mowed down 8 people, the president immediately said, okay, now we need to change a policy in terms of immigration. And yet here we have a mass shooting, and there's not the same jump to, well, what's the policy that can be fixed to try to stop people with weapons? On the other hand, there were the Democrats who, back after Las Vegas, said we immediately need to take up the issue of gun control. But then after the terror attack here in New York said, well, we shouldn't be politicizing this. So it just, I mean, it depends from incident to incident. If it's an incident that involves Muslim terrorism, you're going to hear Republicans talk very quickly about the country. If it's an incident that involves a mass shooting, you hear the Democrats say very quickly we need to have gun control. But it just depends on the incident in terms
David,
of what side you're on and whether or not this is too soon to do this.
A very inconsistent reaction depending on the situation. Michael, very briefly, what can we look forward to in the remainder of the day from Texas? Any kind of updates?
I think the issues you're going to look into is, you know, what happened, as David mentioned, why he didn't get, why he got a gun when he was stopped from getting a gun, and an examination into the U.S. military sharing their information about discipline with the federal authorities to prevent these things from happening. So I think that's the direction they're going to be going here, and also trying to answer some questions about what brought that man to that church.